Okay, we talked about Senator McCarthy again, and I wanted to get back to this initial criticism of my videos that I'm bringing up this part of the definitions of communism, socialism, Bolshevik, racist, all these terms that are being used as wedge words to get people into power. In other words, my theory is that the corrupt neocons and the corrupt transcendental capitalists are getting into power very easily. They're getting a free ride into power. Obviously, there's donations being made. There's an inside track where people at the top of the party, in the Republican Party, are getting information that this is the candidate we're going to support, and they're being told to do so. And then they rig the primary for the person they want to get in to win. Okay, and they will then select weak candidates to run against the favored candidate, and I see it done all the time. They pick these goofy people who think that they actually have a chance to win. They would pick me. They would come to me and say, "Hey, do you want to run against you know Joe Smith?" And I'd yeah, sure. Well, I have a chance to become the nominee for state senator. Yeah, you better believe it. I'll be out there, and I go out there, and I'm not prepared, but he is. He knows what to say. He knows what the questions are going to be, and he knows, or she knows, what is expected of what the party expects to hear, and she'll go right down the list. Anti-communist. I'm I'm pro-life. I'm, I'm for a balanced budget. And all these things that are buzzwords that are going to get them into power. Once they get into power, then you find out they're no leaders. They're not leaders. They're not leading us, and we found out the hard way in this last election. And I'm trying to point out that getting people mistracked and missidetracked on these terms is one of the key techniques that is used to confuse us. And the big words that I'm using are the big words that are being used right now. You're a communist and socialist. Bernie Sanders is not a socialist. He's not a communist. We need to identify who he really is, so we know not to put those same people into power along with Bernie Sanders, okay, from the Republican side, and that's what we're doing. Um, and Senator McCarthy, what people don't understand from history, was he started out by trying to alert the American people of what he called the greatest conspiracy of all time. And what that conspiracy was, what he thought of as a conspiracy, was the fact that the United States was covertly meeting with Mao Zedong to remove Chiang Kai-shek from power, and to put the full backing of the American military, the American foreign policy with Mao Zedong. This was in the 50s, I think, and I know it continued into the 60s. But definitely, Senator McCarthy was very clear about this. He then got involved in this business of trying to remove communists from the system, and that's where he got off on a sidetrack, like I would probably happen to me, because mind tends to wander, and you get off the main point, and then you're lost. And he couldn't prove these people were communists. Anybody can tell you they weren't communists. It's kind of like that Dan Rather thing where he accused President Bush of some kind of wrongdoing, and it turned out that President George W. Bush was not involved in any of these. He was misspoken, and he was wrong, and he was totally discredited, and that was before we really cared about news. We actually the news media actually was really concerned about being called fake news media. Today they don't care. Their fake news media is a badge of honor for them. But Dan Rather was he lost a lot of credibility with that, and he was set up for that. He was given bad information, and he got sidetracked. And instead of going for the real issues that he should have been going for, the real abuses in the Bush administration, he got sidetracked on this little thing, thinking it was an easy hit. It would be an easy win to discredit Bush, and he ended up discrediting himself. Same thing happened with McCarthy. He got involved in this communist thing because the communism doesn't exist, folks. I hate to tell you. It does not exist. It's the opiate of the elites. The elites say religion is the opiate of the people. Well, I'd say communism is the opiate of the elites. It's a drug. It's a non-starter. No one's a communist. They can't be. You can't be. And I think the people that think they're communists, the ones that say they are, they support communism, will soon, when they come for their paycheck, they will change their vote very quickly. Okay, because they're not communists. I know these people. I know I've debated them. I've talked. I still do every day. I mean, not every day, but when I meet them, we have these debates. We still have. I had a meeting with a leftist friend of mine just the other day. We're riding a trolley together, and he was having a big problem with his daughter, who's being was being told that uh, the boys now in her high school are going to be allowed to compete in her sport. And he was livid. This guy was a real Democrat, a real, you know, I would say not a hardcore leftist, but definitely a liberal and a definitely a more of a socialist than a capitalist. And he was going off. I thought he was going to go totally proud boy on me. He was really angry, and his big concern was, he said, now they're talking that the boys and the girls will share the same locker room. And he said, if that happens, I'm going down there and I'm going to make some trouble. I said, you better calm down. You better calm down. I could see what's happening here. These crazy programs, these crazy processes. Again, another example of how they're trying to get us off track. I said, what you have to do, Joe, is get these people out of power. You got to vote them out. He says, I'm voting him out. I'm going to vote him out. He's talking about voting Trump. He's talking about going with the Trump team. And this is, of course, late after the election. But I'm just telling you, these people are starting to realize now. They're being lied to. And things are happening on the street. I can see it I have the sense myself that this victory for the Democrats is a short one. It's going to be a short-lived one, at least as long as the country's still here. Unless the only other way they can maintain their power would be to continuously use bad voting machines and to continue to corrupt the election process, because they're losing support very big. And you see CNN going down, you see Google going down. This is just the beginning. These guys, and that's why these people are starting to panic in a big time. They thought Trump was a problem. They don't. There's more trouble coming for them, but that's why Biden's in there, right, signing all these all these executive orders. They want to try to solidify their power as much as they can before the next election. So. We have to be on guard. We have to be on target, on focus. Focus on the election system. Focus on the voting machines. Focus on our voter rolls. Focus on our party. Make sure that we're getting candidates and leaders that we can vote for and support. And I know that's going to be hard to do. I understand that. I know it's a long problem. Getting hard to convince people where this problem really is. I still don't have what I would consider to be a majority of people who agree with me. Just a few people, say 3 out of 10 or 4 out of 10, that say, yeah, I somewhat see what you're talking about. I think you're right, and they go into something else. They don't see what I'm saying as being. But they will get it, though. They will. It's a matter of time for people begin to understand what I'm talking about. But McCarthy is the big conspiracy he was talking about was the secret move to China. I went to high school, a local Catholic high school here in Delaware County, and I was fortunate enough my first year to have an instructor in what we called world cultures. His name was Reverend Joseph McCluskey. He was a very prominent and well-known individual in the Philadelphia Archdiocese region. He is a relative of the Kelly family, the famous Kelly family, which Grace Kelly is from, a part of. And he was our instructor. And how I got in his class, I don't know, because I was not an advanced, what you would call an advanced placement student. We had an alphabetic section of ratings, A, B, C, D, and E, and the A guys were the upper class, and actually they had numbers. They had 1, 2, 3, 1 to 13. Okay, and from 1 to 13, number 1 being the top placement students. I was 9. Okay, so I was down there, but I got in his class. Only the 1s and 2s got in his class, so they must not have had room for me, so they put me in his class. I was lucky. And he talked to us like we were adults. He expected us to be adults, and he talked to us really straightforward. And of course, I didn't. First year, first semester, first class, I didn't know what he was talking about. I was barely 17 years old. And he was talking about China. When the textbook, I'll never forget that we were using one of the textbooks he made us read it was a sort of a paperback textbook called The Two Chinas. And it was talking about the differences between the mainland Chinese and the Taiwanese. And I still didn't understand it, but over the years I began to the picture emerged clearly in my head. But it wasn't soon enough to help me get an A in this class. I think I got a C. I was lucky to get a C. But at that time, I do remember what he was talking about, because I remember everything he said. And being who he was, being a member of the family that he was, being in a position in the society that he was, he had access to a lot of very, very powerful people. And I'm sure he hobnobbed with a lot of diplomats and a lot of statespeople, and he went to a lot of the parties, and was well known and well liked and well loved. I don't know if he was on the right or the left. I think he was a little bit of both. But he talked about the two Chinas, and what he would say to us. He said, "Don't worry, we have people in China that are doing everything to keep China in our camp." And he painted a picture more of a patriotic thing, not like what's happening now, but people who are involved from the intelligence community, who are working with the Chinese. And the idea then was to build China up strong enough to oppose Russia. That was the key. That was the thinking then. A lot of people don't remember this, and we wanted China to become powerful. We wanted China to become a regional power. But you know what happened? What happened was it went too far. We created a monster, and now the monster's loose. And the people that got rich initially, helping China to become a power. Their descendants and the people that have taken over from them are taking it to the next level. Well, they made a lot of money selling arms and giving away our secrets to China. We'll do the same thing. And now China now is getting more than what they need to defend themselves and to be a stabilizing power in that region. And they're communists. So that's the other problem. Communism, as you know, and I said before, it does not work. Okay, this is why the communist system always turns into a totalitarian, restrictive, and tyrannical system, because it doesn't work. People at the top steal. Now, according to my instructor, Joseph McCluskey, he put in my head at a very young age that we work with our enemies. Okay, we work with our enemies. Joseph McCarthy tried to point it out to the American people. He saw it as a bad thing, and I think they had to shut him up, because they saw this as a military operation, and they had him basically hang himself with his own emotions, with his own lack of understanding, and he started going down this road of calling people names. And then they got him because he couldn't prove who they were. He couldn't prove what he was calling them, and eventually he was done. Everything he said. We threw everything out, including the things that we should have been listening to. But Nixon, of course, came along and opened the door openly, made it an open policy that we're now supporting communist China, and that was the reason why I think he was booted out of office. I think the military didn't want this to become. We're not ready for this yet. Nixon was trying to produce a legacy for himself, and I think they thought he was putting the country in power, and maybe he was. Maybe we wanted to keep this thing a quiet thing, but it's a little bit of insight as to where I'm coming from with this. We have to start thinking like the people who are trying to rule over us. We have to think like they do. We have to be unemotional. We have to be analytical. We have to watch the words we say. Stop calling people names that we don't. I mean, if somebody is a transcendental capitalist, I can prove it. I can prove what that word means. I can prove who I say is not a bad thing necessarily, but I can tell you if they're corrupt or not. You can tell if guy's kid is his dumb kid is being put on the top board of a country's energy company, and he's not qualified. That's a corrupt transcendental capitalist. You don't need me to tell you that. All right. So those are the things we have to start looking for before we start vetting the kind of leaders that we need, and we get him and getting him properly into the Republican Party, so we can vote for them and we can support them. God bless America. Don't lose faith.